Hi everyone, I'm Emma, and you're on the Stories by Emma channel. Let's dive into some amazing stories. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Thank you. Across the forgotten trails, the sun was barely rising as Lara tightened the straps of her backpack. The vastness of the Colorado wilderness spread out before her, a challenge she had been preparing for months. The early morning silence was broken only by the rustling of leaves and the distant calls of birds, a reminder of just how alone she was in this vast expanse. But Lara thrived on isolation. This was where she felt most alive. Her goal was simple: retrace the forgotten trails of early settlers who had once braved these rugged mountains. These paths, long abandoned and overgrown, whispered stories of the past. Her grandmother had often spoken of them, recounting tales passed down through generations. Lara felt connected to these ancestors, as though by walking their trails, she could unlock the mysteries they left behind. The first few miles were easy, the terrain relatively forgiving. But as she ventured deeper into the wilderness, the path became more treacherous. Steep inclines, rocky outcrops, and thick vegetation challenged her every step. Sweat trickled down her forehead, but Lara pressed on, driven by a curiosity that outweighed her exhaustion. She had come too far to turn back now. As the sun reached its peak, Lara paused by a small creek to refill her water bottle. She glanced at her map, tracing the faint line of the trail she had marked weeks earlier. It seemed to vanish into the dense forest ahead, as if nature itself was trying to conceal its secrets. She knew this journey wouldn't be easy, but she hadn't expected the trail to be this elusive. The deeper she ventured, the more she felt like she was stepping back in time. Ancient trees towered overhead, their twisted branches creating a canopy that filtered the sunlight into soft, golden beams. Every now and then, she would stumble upon old artifacts, rusted tools, fragments of pottery, remnants of those who had once made this journey. It was as if the past was leaving breadcrumbs for her to follow. By late afternoon, she reached a clearing that took her breath away. In the center stood a crumbling stone structure, overgrown with ivy and moss. It was the remains of an old outpost, where settlers once stopped to rest. Lara approached it cautiously, her heart racing with excitement. This was it, the first real sign that she was on the right path. She explored the ruins, imagining what life must have been like for those who once sought refuge here. There were remnants of a fire pit, old stone walls that had crumbled over time, and a faded engraving on one of the stones. As Lara traced her fingers over the inscription, a chill ran down her spine. It was a name, barely legible but unmistakable, her great-great-grandfather's. The discovery filled her with a sense of purpose. This was no longer just an adventure, it was personal. Her ancestors had walked this very path, and now it was up to her to finish what they had started. Lara set up camp near the ruins, her mind racing with questions. Why had they come here? What had they been searching for? And why had the trail been forgotten? That night, as she lay in her tent under the stars, Lara couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't alone. The forest seemed alive with the echoes of the past. She could almost hear the voices of those who had come before her, whispering in the wind. The weight of her journey pressed heavily on her chest, but it also filled her with a sense of responsibility. She had to keep going. The next morning, Lara packed up her gear and resumed her trek. The trail became even more difficult to navigate, but she remained undeterred. Each step felt like a step closer to understanding her family's history. The mountains seemed to close in around her, their towering peaks casting long shadows that made her feel small in comparison. But she was determined, and nothing would stop her. As the days passed, Lara encountered more signs of her ancestors' journey. An old campsite marked by the charred remains of a fire, and a weathered journal, its pages brittle and faded. She read what little she could decipher, piecing together the story of their journey, one of hope, loss, and perseverance. It was a story she felt compelled to finish. The final stretch of the trail was the hardest. The path was barely visible, hidden beneath layers of fallen leaves and debris. But Lara pushed forward, her legs burning with exhaustion, her mind focused on the end goal. She could feel that she was close, that the answers she sought were just beyond the next ridge. The air was thin, making each breath a struggle, but she refused to stop. As she reached the top of the ridge, The view before her took her breath away. A sprawling valley stretched out below, untouched by time or human hands. In the distance, she could see the faint outline of another structure, this one larger, more intact. It was the settlement her ancestors had been searching for, hidden away in the mountains all these years. Tears welled up in her eyes as she made her way down into the valley. This was it, the end of her journey, but the beginning of something much bigger. She had found what her ancestors had been looking for, and in doing so had connected with a part of herself she never knew existed. The adventure had been more than just a physical journey. It had been a journey of self-discovery. Standing in the center of the forgotten settlement, Lara took a deep breath and smiled. She had done it. She had retraced the footsteps of her ancestors and uncovered the secrets they had left behind. The trail might have been forgotten by the world, but it would never be forgotten by her.